Welcome to It's Meaningless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who are within the first 5 years of business and who are tired of stuck and ready to stomach the brutal truth. Here we uncover the meaningless daily habits that keep you from protecting and growing in life and in business. This is episode 16, and we're talking about blaming. So, I guess about 10, let's call it 10 years ago, I started working at this. Well, I was working at this client's office, um, and they hired on working as a developer, and they hired on with actually it was with a particularly complex piece of software, and they hired on a couple of other developers, just trying to get some volume in. And so I had been working there already before the other developers had gotten there, working on this software. It was an existing software, um, and effectively the persons who had built it and had maintained it before had already pretty much left. So it was pretty much at that point up to me and one other guy who was there with me, and then these other two guys that they brought on to get things done. So um, at that point, I'm pretty much a well. My position there was more of a subcontractor. Um, so I wasn't there like all the time. Um, Um, I had certain days I had set aside to be there, and then I was at other clients on other days. Um, so the two guys they hired in, they were pretty much, they were still contract, but they were contract like full time. So um, we get in, and as these guys come in, one of them, I guess, kind of positions himself as kind of the senior, and in fact, I believe he was hired on as um, a senior or team lead or whatever. And so, effectively, we I guess we're kind of gelling or trying to gel as a team. Um, and I don't know, I don't remember. There was some point at which I we got into a disagreement, and effectively, like the cause for the disagreement was we had some piece of we had some milestone, some portion of a project that we were rolling out, and I had a piece of it, um, and I guess I had probably a significant piece of it, and so we were pretty much given like kind of updates, milestones of like, okay, how much percentage wise we were done with parts of the project. And so I gave my percentage, whatever it was at the time. And I don't know, I guess a few days later, I get called into the office for um, the manager of the team, and something to the effect of that the new guys were challenging my the level of progress that I said I had made on the project. And so I'm like, okay. Um, so effectively, his thing was like, okay, you guys go have a meeting in the conference room together, just kind of work through like what's what. So we go in to the meeting. I show them what's going on, and I can't say I did the right thing in this. I can't say I did the right thing because this is kind of where the blaming part comes in. Um, because of the fact that it was pretty obvious. Not necessarily both of them. I think it was more so the guy who had been um kind of called in as team lead. Um, but it seemed the sense was that it was kind of like the whole competition, one-upsmanship, or trying to anyway, from him, which is part of the reason that he decided to try to initiate this inquisition. Um, so like after I showed him um what I had, I'm kind of like, so like, what's the deal? Like, what's going on? Um, and I kind of gave it to him. Um, which, like I said, it's probably 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 not the best response. Uh, probably not the best response. Especially since, um, yeah, especially since that kind of created an environment later on. At least it contributed to an environment later on of kind of the, I don't know, um, competition between us, which is, I mean, some people like, I guess there's a way to do that in a healthy way. Um, but these days, very few people are actually, like, when they talk about competition in the workplace, very few people are doing it anywhere close to a healthy way. So that created that kind of environment, or at least, like I said, contributed to it. It sure didn't help it, um, which made our it made our work a lot more a lot more difficult going forward. And like it was all caused by, like it was all initiated by the whole finger pointing, blaming. I'm gonna show you that kind of. At least that seems to be the gist of where the initial um thing was coming from. Because before that, like there didn't seem to be any problems that I realized. Like new people on the team, like good, great, more help. Kind of vetting, filling out where everybody was, and um, like that was just, I don't know, just kind of getting to know everybody. The thing though is like, I guess part of it's like, why do we do this in the first place? Like why do we do the blame thing in the first place? And this is one scenario, but like there are multiple types of cases where we do the blame thing. And the question is why? Like why do we blame other people for things that were on our plate, um, for things that they're not responsible for. Um, why do we do that? And I think the answer comes down to like no one wants to be wrong. And I think that's, to me these days, that statement is just 100% true. And that statement is cringeworthy because of the fact that like you can say it just about in every area of like relationships these days. Every avenue, every like every type of organization, every type of engagement. In other words, anywhere where humans relate, that statement can be said. No one wants to be wrong. And like myself included, myself included, which is why I leveled on the guy. Um, no, I didn't do anything bad, but like at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I made it known that I was not happy about the fact that he, I guess, kind of called me out like he did, which, like I said, wasn't necessarily the greatest thing. Um, but it just goes to show, like, that this idea of I don't want to be wrong being pervasive in our minds, like, is something that is present in just about every relationship that we face. And that might just seem like, oh, I'm defending myself, or oh, that's the right thing. The problem, though, is I've heard it. I've heard it said this way. So, like, for example, marriage, and of course, marriage is one of the most, like, intimate, one of the most close relationships that you'll have, one of the most valuable relationships that you can have. But I've heard it said like this: for marriage, you can be right or you can be married, and like that sounds, for all the stuff that we teach and preach and pat each other on the back for these days, that sounds maybe like faulty advice or faulty reasoning. But I have found, like, through experience, I have 100% found there's being right is overrated, and that statement is true. You can be right or you can be married, and right now, not just talking about marriage, but like all the relationships that we have with people in general. Like, you can be right or be cohesive as a team. You can be right or continue the relationship that you have with um, your employee that produces. There's like there's multiple scenarios. I believe it that this applies to, and I guess the thing is like, why does this rub us wrong so wrong? Um, like, why do we fight this so much? Why is this so much, I guess, internal angst or even violence against this idea of not standing up for being right? Um, and I will say, like, don't get me wrong. Um, if he picked up on that, um, I will say this: there's this isn't this isn't talking about allowing people to yeah, this isn't talking about allowing people to abuse you. And it's not I don't believe it's even talking about allowing people to mistreat you, especially repeatedly and repeatedly. Um what it is talking about is, I guess, being consistent with having consistent actions and words with where we say our values are. In other words, if we say we value this relationship that we have with another person, then why wouldn't it be appropriate to have actions and words and attitudes that are in line with the truth that I value this relationship with this person? Um, in other words, we have this thing of like this this saying of choose your battles, pick your battles. I think that's kind of close. I think that's a really close summation of this idea of like when we stand back the from I guess pursuit of I don't want to be wrong is it's kind of a thing of pick your battles. And I say close because it's not exactly on. Um it's not complete. Yeah, it's not complete. So what would probably complete it is the fact of coming to the understanding of there's certain battles we don't ever need to engage in. Um Especially depending on the kind of relationship the kind of relationship we have with a person. There's some battles that we don't ever need to engage in. Um and pretty much for the most part those are the ones these types of battles are the ones that are um pretty much all about me, like all about protecting me. um which again, like this is why we're here talking. This goes back into this topic of security. um which is exactly what I don't want to be wrong um is. It's a protection of it's a supposed protection of my identity, which I guess is the problem in itself. um if my identity is wrapped up in I don't want to be wrong about, I don't know, the last football game, how many points they scored, then I got a problem. Like I got a big problem. Um, because frankly, like each of us exist as a whole lot more than what the results um, of a football game are. Um, Even if we're playing in the game, like each of us exists for more for a greater reason than what the outcome of a football game is, what the outcome of like what an employer says about you, what the outcome of a job or something that you're working on turns out to be. We exist for greater than that. So to me, coming to fully embrace that provides the freedom um to be wrong and be okay with it. Like this uh it's kind of interesting. I remember one time in a situation. It was sort of a negotiation. Let's just say high um I guess you would say high conflict. Uh yeah. Like I said, sort of high conflict negotiation anyway. And so the guy the effectively I'm talking with this guy, and he I don't know, he points out something that I'm not aware of. And this is not a field, like I'm not an expert in this field that we're talking about. This is In fact, like he's the expert in the field. So he's telling me about something as though like he's trying to tell me off or something. And I'm telling him there's other people there too. And I'm telling him like, I mean, I don't mind being ignorant, as in like, I think that probably that dropped him. Like he recovered eventually, uh, and I guess reasonably quickly, but it was pretty obvious that he was not expecting that. Because I'm like, to me, like I'm not gonna pretend and sit and pretend like I know all the stuff. Like if you have something that you know that you can share with me, like okay, like by all means, please do. I may learn it this time, I may learn it next time. But at the same time, I don't think it's wise for me to pretend like I'm an expert on something that I'm not, or that I'm aware of something that I'm not. Even though sometimes, like that is sometimes I have, sometimes I do. Hopefully not as much anymore anymore, but uh, I definitely have in the past. But even looking back now, the the times I've done that, I can pretty much say 100%. The catalyst for doing that was I don't want to be wrong. I don't want you to perceive me or see me as wrong. But the truth is, I'm wrong. So that's part of it. Like, I believe, like, if we can get to the place, when we get to the place of being able to be okay with being wrong and to separate that from, that is, my knowledge, my, I guess, profession of some statement, whether, in other words, that it's supposed to be true and it's maybe not true. In other words, that neither of those things are an indication of the value I have. And to me, this is where the whole topic of relationships come in. Um, and that is how we interact with other people, the value in interacting with other people. And this is like whether business partner, employee, like spouse, children, like the value of interacting with other people, no matter what the nature of the relationship. When we come to realize that that value is worth more than what I'm trying to, I guess, yeah, it's worth more than, it's worth more than me by myself. Um, at the very least, yeah, like yeah, and in addition, I'd say in each of those relationships, the amount of productivity, the amount that you can produce, um, whether it's money, whether it's like marketplace penetration, whether it's, I guess, um, greater peace, greater, um, I guess, unity or whatever as a family, um, like whatever it is, you can produce more in those relationships. Like if you're willing to, if both people are willing to put in the effort, uh, you can produce more in those relationships than you can by yourself, hands down, no questions asked. Um, like the idea that two are better than one is something I think we miss a lot these days. Um, we push a lot on the individualistic thing, which to me is just kind of like a, the more we push on that, the more it fuels and provides an environment for the finger pointing, for the blaming, for the I'm right, you're wrong, and causes us to forget about what the goals are. Um, like we've all seen the teams, the people who play on, I don't know, whatever sports team, and can seem to forget that the team is the one that wins the ball games. Team is the one that wins the championships. And like the truth is, it doesn't really matter like who. It doesn't really matter who, what sport, whatever you pick, you choose. In other words, you're not going to have any one player that you're going to put out there by themselves, that is, on a team sport. Any one player that you put out there by themselves that is going to single handedly go and win a championship. In other words, there's no person that you can put on the court by themselves in a basketball game and have them by themselves go win the NBA finals. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, you can name anybody you want to name. They're not going to go win the NBA finals by themselves. So, like, of course, you can say, well, they don't need players on their team that are that good. Yeah, but they need those people still. They need somebody to pass the ball to. They need somebody to give them rest breaks. So, it's part of this. I think part of this, a big part of this conversation, is becoming comfortable with the fact that not only do we need people, I think that's like the lowest level of acknowledging that we need people, but coming to the fact that like we're better off with people. We're better off with people that we can do things with. In other words, trying to grow a business, we're better off with people that we can do things with. And even right now, like a project that I'm working on now, is kind of a new venture, and I had vision in mind for how it would work, and I sort of envisioned myself kind of starting it off and putting it up myself. But like it happens that I know someone who's really good at doing these things. And so instead of me having to take my time, which I've got other projects going on at the same time, instead of me having to take my time to do it, I get to empower somebody else to say, hey, go ahead. Like I've already set up this, and this. Here's how this works. Here's how this works. And then you can do the other stuff, which like you're expert in. So, yeah, like it's okay to not know some things to me. Like it, it provides for way more peace, as in like I don't have to worry about stuff. Like I don't have to be in contention mode all the time, like ready to fight all the time. Like that to me, that takes so much energy out, and it takes energy that I could have been using to accomplish like the goals that I have in front of me to accomplish. So that is that's that's a chunk, and at the same time I think it's possible to come back for this on this for uh another episode too, because there's probably a little more to this conversation, and at the same time I think we got a nice layer established in this one. So But that's all for today. And be back on Thursday. Take care. Bye.